Vaping is a lot less harmful than smoking a cigarette.
We're exporting a whole lot of really bad and dangerous rhetoric, bad research, and unfortunately it's being picked up and amplified in other countries.
Never forget the elephant in the room. It's actually such a big elephant that I don't think people can even breathe in that room because it's such a huge elephant. It's the number one preventable cause of death in Australia. So when you are taking a precautionary approach, when you're like, no, we just don't know enough, I just tell them, shut up, because that just, I don't know, is killing people right now.
There's a tremendous push to bring about prohibition, to actually prohibit vaping. Whereas the evidence strongly suggests that actually, up to now, the most successful way of people stopping smoking cigarettes is vaping.
When vaping increases, smoking decreases.
That's right.
When vaping is restricted, smoking increases.
We're worried that, in fact, a lot of members of the public still think that using an e-cigarette is as harmful as smoking a cigarette. I mean, I have said that it would be tragic if smokers didn't quit and carried on smoking because they hadn't tried an e-cigarette, because they were worried about the safety of an e-cigarette.
Vaping is a form of tobacco harm reduction. No one is claiming it is the silver bullet that's going to stop everyone from smoking, and I think that's really important to acknowledge. And the people that actually support vaping support it as a harm reduction model.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Hello, and welcome to Son of Liberty Radio here on the Smoke Free Radio Network. Howdy, I'm so glad that you guys are here because Kevin and I are excited that we have the privilege of bringing to you guys the best and most amazing guests week after week on this show. Tonight, we've got the privilege of bringing on an Australian senator who was a smoker, who went to her doctor or somehow found out about vaping and became a vapor, and was the chairperson of the Senate Select Committee on Tobacco Harm Reduction in 2020. And there's more stuff ahead. So we're going to have on this show Senator Holly Hughes. I believe she's from New South Wales in Australia. And we're not going to waste a lot of time because she has other engagements. So we only have her for a limited amount of time. But she's already agreed to come back in a few weeks when she has time and update us on more amazing stuff. But before we get any further, let's bring in my brother from another mother, Kevin, so that we can quickly get through his stuff so that we can jump right into the interview. Kevin, you're muted. Hello.
Oh, hello. I'm drinking.
Oh, hello.
I'm drinking the tears of Simon Chapman. What do you?
Well, the Chimp Man. Isn't that right? Isn't the Chimp Man? Isn't that what you call him?
Yes.
I will not say what I normally call Greg Hunt. Because we have to be respectable because of the senators in the backstage area, and we would not want to embarrass or say words that would that possibly would scare her away. But we can talk after her. So yep. I just really want to get started. So hello, all the people, by the way. Hello, everybody that's in the room. I see Bruni, my friend from down under, and Paul, and Mark Sliss, and Hamish, and RBMKII, and David Moyle. I'm not even going to go through all the names because right now I'm just super excited to have the senator on. So welcome and hello, Senator Holly Hughes.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So, we're super excited because, I'm super excited because I work in healthcare. So during the day, I'm working, but as soon as I got home on the days that the Senate Select Committee was on, our very good friend Pippa actually live stream them on YouTube. She went to all the trouble to get permission to live stream them. And I'm sitting here because I missed most of the beginning part of the day, people. But, when the three consumers came on to speak, that was a very powerful thing. And I noticed when you were speaking, and I've got video that I want to play during the testimony of you talking, and you asked a question, and I'm going to play it here in a little bit, but it really got my attention. So, we all understand that you're a vapor now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 138 days without a cigarette.
That's everybody, everybody clap their hands. We're every day. Kevin and I have been vaping for, it's over a decade for me and almost a decade for him, I think, or pretty close.
Close to 8.
8, So, every day that there's a new one of us, because we're all together, we say it all the time that there's a community, and there is, and we're a worldwide community. And, here in the States, we kind of got our blinders on and we only think about America. So one of the things that I've been doing on the show is, we had the president of Inco on. We had Hennig Mitchell from Taiwan on. We've had a bunch of international guests because I want everybody to understand the war that we're fighting is not just here on the American front. It's everywhere. And that we have allies in this war and brothers and sisters all over the world that we are standing beside. Even when we're not there in Australia, we support from here. I do not sound like a bot, Kevin. So, just introduce yourself to the audience and kind of tell your story.
Okay. So how I became involved in this issue was back in, I think it was about May last year. The Minister for Health, whom I'm a member of the government that he serves, put out a statement basically that he was going to ban the personal importation of nicotine. So at the moment, vaping is sort of a bit of a grey area. It's kind of illegal in every state in Australia, but you're allowed to import it for personal use under this personal importation scheme. The technicality is you're supposed to have a prescription for it, but most people don't. But because you can't distribute nicotine in its liquid form within Australia legally, the importation was how most people got access to their vaping products. So this ban would have effectively made vaping impossible in Australia and certainly highly illegal. So there was about 29 of us who signed a letter, all from the government. So the minister's own backbench, we all signed a letter to him saying, well, come on, mate, this didn't come to the party room. What are you doing? And we got an extension or a delay from July 1 to January 1, and that's progressed since then so that this ban has now been taken off the table. But to be honest, I didn't really know that much about it. But the guys that run the Legalised Vaping campaign in Australia are good mates, and I know them, and so spoke to them. And really the issue for me was about personal choice, freedom and liberty. If you can take nicotine through a cigarette, which we know is incredibly harmful, but if you can also get nicotine through a patch, through a gum, through a lozenge, through a spray, why is it so terrible that it comes in the form of vaping? Like, it just seemed to me absolutely, utterly insane. So that was when we started to have a look at it. Because that we were put under a lot of restrictions, like everyone is with COVID, but when we would come to Canberra for Parliament, we were not allowed to go out for dinner. We had to stay in our accommodation, go from Parliament House to our accommodation, which made for some very boring weekends in a Canberra hotel, because we also weren't allowed to go back to Sydney or back to anywhere in those weekends in between parliamentary sitting weeks. So I had a lot of time to do a lot of reading. And one of the things that was sent through to me was a survey from the vapors. I had a really good opportunity to have a very good look at it one Saturday night. And I'd been talking to one of the ministers about a totally different issue, and that we should never be afraid of the information. We should never be afraid of the data. And we should always look into what we can. So that sort of hence where the tobacco harm reduction inquiry started, that we hadn't had one for about 2 to 3 years. A lot had obviously evolved within the vaping community, but the number of vapors, the way things were moving forward. So that was how the terms of reference and the inquiry was born. From my perspective, because I didn't really know much about it other than what I'd read, I thought, well, I should probably go and find out. So I made an appointment with Dr. Colin Mendelsohn, who was obviously leading the campaign with vaping, but is a smoking cessation specialist GP. I had an appointment with him that went for over an hour. We went through different vape devices, different strengths, different flavors, all the different bits and pieces. He also did the psych assessment of when you smoke, why you smoke, all of those sorts of things. And it was, incredibly thorough, the appointment. So I now have my prescription for vaping. He gave me a sample to take with me that he had there. And I then ordered my stuff online from New Zealand, and it arrived within a couple of days. And I honestly have not had a cigarette since. And it was totally, organic in the way it happened, because I really didn't have any intention to quit. It wasn't like I went out looking at this as an option for myself. I loved B&H Smooth with a glass of wine and, sitting on my balcony. There was nothing better. And honestly, I couldn't think of having a cigarette now. I can smell people walking down the hallway with it, and it makes me feel ill. I'm, like we briefly discussed, I'm one of those now reformed smokers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as an ex-smoker, I have patients that still smoke. And when I go in, I'm like, I cannot believe I didn't know that I smelled like that.
Oh, it's revolting,
And you're like, why didn't somebody tell me?
Yeah, but look, I've got a couple of friends that, we'd get together and have a glass of wine and a ciggy. And I remember one of them said to me, you don't have any ciggies on you by any chance, do you? And I'm like, nope, off them. I've got the vape now. And so he's had a go of it. He's like, it's actually really quite good. So there's no smoking, with so many friends now. They don't smoke at all. They sit with me and have one, and now they don't do it. I don't know whether they do it with other people, but certainly with me, that's all totally stopped. And that, I had a friend the other week, he had been buying those terrible ones, the $5 revolting vapes that are actually illegal. And someone had given him one. And so I went down and took him down one of my spare vape devices, because Colin gave me the advice to make sure you've got more than a couple of, on the charger, off the charger. I've got some in Canberra, some in Sydney, pretty much everywhere. I took him one down. I took him down a couple of pods and said, try these, see how you go. And so we're in the process at the moment of trying to find him a doctor to prescribe him nicotine, because in Australia, at the time of the inquiry, we had 10 doctors who prescribe nicotine, and one of them's just retired. So we're down one. And we've got 520,000 vapors. So it's a little bit problematic about how we're going to get those prescriptions.
Getting those appointments fulfilled within any timely manner, just being able to go in and have the office visit to get the prescription.
Yeah, so there is some negotiation and discussion, and I think it's going to be ongoing at how this is going to work. So basically from October, you'll need a prescription to import nicotine. Otherwise, there's fines and different things associated with it. As far as I can still understand, the actual distribution of nicotine in Australia, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, because, who's going to sell it? I mean, is there going to be an ability to bring in commercial quantities of nicotine to then sell to people with a prescription, which would obviously then have to be sold via a pharmacy? Pharmacies really aren't that interested in getting involved in this. But you still obviously have the personal importation scheme. So people will, from the perspective of getting nicotine, you're still going to be able to get it. From my perspective, as a member of the federal government who's very interested in our tax revenue side, I get very upset that we're sending jobs, we're sending supply chain, we're sending, production, distribution, all of that to New Zealand primarily. Just think it's not all my cup of tea, but quite frankly, I'm not that interested in giving jobs either. I'd prefer them to be here.
We actually know a pharmacist from New Zealand, or that's in New Zealand, that is more than willing to help.
But you can still buy from New Zealand now. This is what and I guess there were a lot of people disappointed last December when we reported that we weren't moving to a consumer model, and ultimately that's where I would like to see us go. But we still, made significant gains, and the fact that that personal importation ban would have effectively made vaping totally illegal within Australia. So by getting that ban removed, we've totally changed that landscape.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
the conversation.
Restriction model, not great. But as a member of the government, I have to say that if we cannot work with the GPs, if we cannot get the Royal Colleges, then ensure we have enough GPs to provide the services of prescriptions that somehow or other, I mean, I don't know where in the budget this is coming from, because you've obviously got now additional potential Medicare rebates because we have universal healthcare here in Australia. How is that all going to work? And at the end of the day, it will be a failure of government policy if there are not enough doctors to then prescribe. So it's something that I'm going to be looking incredibly closely at to ensure, because the doctors have to register to be able to provide those nicotine scripts. And I understand they're going to do some training for them about how it works. Not a lot of GPs are big fans. They don't understand it for a start, but they're pretty busy with a whole lot of other stuff. As we all know, the best people to probably advise you are vapors, people that use vapes. They understand it. It's the guys that run vape stores that have taught me more about it. And to be fair, Colin was a fantastic GP, but that was his specialist area.
Yeah.
Everyone else.
There's probably nobody better in Australia to convert people or to be the doctor to do that than Colin.
Well, he's just retired.
And he's retired.
So it's a huge loss.
Yep.
Huge loss.
Yep. And I understand that even with a prescription, you can only have a 3-month supply. You can only import a 3-month supply. Is that?
So you can only import a 3-month supply. My prescription is for 12 months though. So it's a prescription with 4, the repeats on it, 3 repeats, so that each 3 months. So it actually goes for 12 months. And basically, I don't have to take my prescription anywhere. I have a copy of it on my phone. So I have a photo of it. So if I'm ever vaping somewhere and someone ever came up to me and said, do you have a prescription for that? Well, actually, you might have seen in the TGA during the inquiry when I pointed out that the rather large bottle of pure nicotine without a child safety cap imported from China, that was legal, whereas the small containers with that are very tough to squeeze, that have the small lid, the pointy lids, and the little spout. See, I'm very technical, but they are incredibly child safe. But they don't want to sell those in Australia. They want to, they still want you to be able to import these huge bottles that, no child safety protection caps, which we did get the TGA to move on that they are going to make sure and mandate child protection caps. But people keep this stuff in the freezer. Lots of people's freezers are on the bottom of the fridge now. So we need to be really, really careful here. But, the TGA's smart ass to me, you got a prescription for that? Well, thankfully I already had it up on the phone, so I did. And it was empty. But, it's just ridiculous. I'm very concerned it's not going to work, but I think we do as a community need to acknowledge it is a significant step forward from policymakers wanting to just ban vaping full stop, and we've got away from that.
Many of us are very familiar with we know somebody that was in Australia that lost his livelihood. He lost everything when the state or province or whatever the word is in Australia went against him. Vince lost everything. Like, they drug him through the courts. Like, he had a business where he was trying to help people quit smoking, and he lost everything because
it is harder to buy a vape in Australia than it is to buy a gun in the US.
Well, no, I mean, I live in Texas. It's not hard at all in Texas.
But I would suggest almost in any state in the US, it's easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a vape in Australia. It's extraordinary. But you can go to the supermarket for this terrible product that we call nicotine that is just so dreadful. You can go to the supermarket with there's absolutely no age restrictions and buy nicotine-based products.
Like cigarettes.
And it's cigarettes, but they do have them behind the counter, and there are obviously
cigarettes are restricted, but the sprays, the gums, the lozenges, they're right on that lower shelf.
Yeah, if we look at what the anti-smoking campaigns used to be about, they actually used to be quite factual. You know, they talked about the tar, the carcinogens, and the smoke that goes into your lungs with cigarette smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's nicotine.
Yeah.
Because they are just looking for the next thing. It is so ideological. And what I find extraordinary is so-called professionals who are in incredibly senior roles within universities, health organizations and associations, senior doctors who would very much like to think of themselves as specialists, and you know, I like they probably think of themselves quite respectable people. The personal vitriol and attacks that have been you know, put to me, the constant bombardment that I receive from one particular advocate against vaping, who is convinced that somehow or other we're all the shill of big tobacco. And, you know, who's going to lose the money the most? I haven't bought a packet of cigarettes for 138 days. I just saw when I was just went to the store before I came back to my hotel this morning, the sign up, cigarettes have gone up 12.5% again due to a new government tax. The fact of the matter is, putting prices up is not working. The smoking rate has remained very stagnant for the last few years. We're at a point now that price is no longer the push point. And we have so much illegal tobacco now coming into this country that the black market, through the increased price, the black market's just increasing to grow. And yep, big tobacco in the past, probably not the greatest corporate citizens. However, a lot of them have recognised the fact that their market is disappearing. People are no longer smoking. And obviously there's different countries have different types of declines in their smoking rates. But one of the proposals that I made was to be smoke-free in 2027. Now, the senators who went against that, including one of my colleagues, they couldn't even support that as a part of the report. And I found that extraordinary. And I think it tells you everything we need to know about these people. Is it's not about really quitting smoking. Their ideological viewpoint against vaping is so strong and so weird. Like, honestly, it's just weird. I don't know why it invokes this incredible sort of anger from these people. I mean, this colleague of mine said to me when I first moved to get the inquiry up, her comment to me was, why don't they just use a patch? And I said to her, do you smoke? And she's like, no. I said, have you ever smoked? And she said, no. And I said, well, shut up then. You don't know how hard it is to quit smoking. I mean, honestly.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if one more person who's never had a cigarette and's never had to try and quit smoking tells me that, call the quit line, go and get a patch, go and get a spray. I mean, what they don't understand, for me, it had nothing to do necessarily with the nicotine. It was very, the habit, when you had a wine or you were on the phone.
The rituals.
Was my thing, the ritual. I never had a cigarette till 5 o'clock in the evening, at least. Yep. Like I never smoked during the day. But there was rituals there, and it had become a bit of a thing that, you know, I would be able to escape for about 10 minutes at 5 o'clock from when I had very young children. And, you know, I'd sneak out the back and have a ciggy, and that was my time. It was associated with quiet time. So for me, it was both the physical, but also that psychological connection. And you don't get that from a patch, but you get it from the vape. And so because that you can mimic what you used to do, it is literally so easy. And I have never been able to quit before, even though, you know, I had gone through periods in my life, and certainly when I was pregnant, I never smoked. I actually went quite a few years without smoking, and was really much very, very social with it. But then there was other times, I have a son with autism, very stressful at times. And I am happy to acknowledge that sometimes when I get a bit stressed, I would like a cigarette. Yes. But, you know, and that was where it was. So I'm just sick of people who've never had to try and quit smoking make these suggestions, which are just ludicrous. Because when you talk to vapers who successfully quit, every single one of them has tried another product beforehand. Mm-hmm. Some of the stories we hear about people that have tried pharmaceutical remedies like Champix,
some of the stories are just frightening with the side effects. And in fact, every friend of mine I know who's tried Champix, not one of them has successfully quit smoking ever. I cannot think of one, and I can think of 20 people who've used Champix, and every single one of them smokes still.
Yeah, Eliana is our pharmacist friend from New Zealand. She makes a comment in the chat room going back to the price increases, breaking the cycle of poverty. Cigarettes make poor Australians poor, especially the Aboriginal people that have a higher smoking prevalence. Those of us that have been in a situation where we don't have as much money, we would choose to smoke. We would buy cigarettes before we would buy lunch.
And look,
price increases just demonize and attack the poor people because they're still going to get the thing that provides that small amount of stress relief. I mean, people that are poorer, people that live in stressful situations, people that have mental illness, people that have problems, smoking rates are higher in those groups. A cost increase doesn't and the people that they're trying to keep from smoking, they have more spendable money. The kids get money from mom and dad.
Yeah, look, it's reached a point at the moment we're not going to see, without some form of new intervention, price increases. I don't think are anymore going to be the deterrent that they were. I mean, I remember when cigarettes. Now I'm probably giving my age away here, but I
think both of us are older than you.
But they were less than $5 a packet, and I remember being with girlfriends, we just left school and saying, we're going to stop when they hit $5 a packet. The last packet of cigarettes I bought cost $58.
Holy
$58.
Crikey. No, I mean, I remember when cigarettes were 60 cents a pack. So
yeah.
And Kevin remembers when they were 20 cents a pack.
$58 was the last packet of cigarettes I bought.
No.
So one of the things, the clip I wanted to play was from the hearing. And this is something that all of us have experienced. And when a politician, because I want everybody to know, not all politicians are evil, because we have one here who's one of us. You put it in perfect words. And when you said this, it just made me feel warm that there was somebody that was on our side. You might not be in our capital here in the States, but I just want to play this. And then you can answer the question that you were going to here. So let me slap this on the screen here.
One of the things that we do keep hearing from the experts is that the stories like yours, increasingly stories like mine, I'm 60 days without a cigarette, that we are nothing but anecdotes.
So how does it make you feel when you see a scientist or a supposed health professional or a public health professional? We have a word for them, public health in name only. Public health person point to our stories and diminish the value of our stories by saying you're an anecdote, you're not important, that's not a science-based statement or whatever. What does that make you feel?
Look, I just found some of the responses overwhelmingly by people who purport to be public health officials. I'm not quite sure whose public health they're trying to support, but it's certainly not people that want to quit smoking. But their total reluctance to acknowledge the everyday Australians who were, sharing their stories. But it included my colleagues who, when I asked for a greater extension of the inquiry to allow us to go and talk to more people around the country, because we had received over 9,000 submissions from everyday Australians telling their stories. And I mean, this is an incredible amount of people in it was a very tight timeline, this whole inquiry. So the receiving of submissions was 2 weeks, I think. So, in that incredibly short piece of time, we had over 9,000 submissions. Now, some of my colleagues and all of these people that were coming in from a public health perspective and telling us that vaping was not efficient and that anyone who said it was just an anecdote, had zero interest in hearing from them, had zero interest in listening to them, and had zero interest in actually reading those submissions. And, one of the studies that was being presented to us was relying on its vaping product with 0.01% nicotine, effectively no nicotine at all. And that was the basis she was using the study to say, see, vaping doesn't work. It was just ridiculous. Senator Canavan did a fantastic job that she was refusing to look at one series of studies because she wasn't happy with their, Matt was fantastic on all the statistical information around those, but she was heavily relying on one that actually says this study should not be used because the data can't be verified. But she was using that to rely on her evidence that vaping doesn't work, but anyone who told her that it did was just an anecdote. But this is the same person who's been paid $1 million, picked by the government, the minister, to put this report together, whom at times would say to us, oh, I can't fully answer that because the report's not completed. She had $750,000 for a 7-page report, which is basically a desktop study. It's embarrassing. And then the recommendations from TGA to come out before her report was done.
Haley Decker Leonard.
But it just shows that the sincerity behind this was not there. No. It wasn't really about understanding vaping. There was an ideological position that vaping should not occur, that it shouldn't be supported, that it shouldn't be legal. And it's, there was lots of people there to back that up. With the anecdote side of things, it is so offensive. I'm a senator for New South Wales. I represent all people in New South Wales in the Senate. And the number of people from across not only New South Wales, but the country that have reached out to me that are ashamed that they are treated so badly. They're embarrassed that they're dismissed, that they're called an anecdote. They're devastated that what their success means is totally diminished and ignored. And the fact that it's becoming harder and harder for them. Hopefully we'll make it easier, eventually for these people to continue vaping. But, people were genuinely scared. They had quit smoking after 30, 40, 50 years. And they were petrified that they would go back to cigarettes if they quit vaping and they couldn't access vaping. And that's, really, it's a terrible state of affairs.
Has this given you a insight for the senator side of you, not as a consumer, but as a senator, when you're going to in the future or since these hearings, you're listening to other people with anecdotal testimony. Does that change your mindset as to what you're listening to because of this?
I think you've always got to mix, I think, the two, the anecdote with the scientific. But at the end of the day, when they are doing scientific studies, they're talking to real people. Well, they should be.
Right.
And to then try and separate the two, it just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. I'm also chairing an inquiry into autism at the moment. And, some of the most powerful stories that we hear and the most powerful testimony is coming from parents and their experience and autistic people themselves and their experiences. And you can't take away that lived experience. The lived experience
and you can't
is
regulate.
what makes people interested in something. The lived experience is what draws people to a particular issue or, advocacy work. So the lived experience is really, really important, and it's important for us to understand it.
Yeah. I did throw the link. You were talking about Emily Banks. That was the testimony because I rewatched some of these videos in preparation for the show, and that bit where you were getting to question her was getting quite exciting. And she was just not willing to answer those questions. Oh, I don't want to preempt my study by answering those questions.
But on the same account, I'm not using the studies that support vaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you the truth.
Because she's actually not doing a study herself. She's doing a collation of studies.
Yeah, she's doing a review, a scientific review.
Yeah. So she's reviewing studies that support her point of view. And when it was pointed out, there were other studies that were by leading academics, leading universities that have been supported and backed up and absolutely, revisited and reviewed and no, they weren't any good to her.
Yeah, no,
she was, able to statistically claim there were problems, but she's very happy to cling to the one that literally says, don't use this study because the data is not verifiable. And
Yeah,
Senator Canavan was brilliant.
They were going after the nut study quite significantly during the testimony. We can't use that one because, it doesn't say what we want it to say.
Yeah, it doesn't support my point of view, and this is, everyone's human. But for some reason on this vaping issue, there is this fierce opposition that is, it's weird. I don't understand why these people, they literally live and breathe anti-vaping.
They're going to lose
and
their
so quite
jobs.
frankly, after talking to all these people, they to me are the pro-smoking lobby. They are the big tobacco supporters, because every single person they make it more difficult to go into vaping for is another person who's continuing to buy cigarettes, who's continuing to support big tobacco, and it's with their endorsement.
So what do you have going on in the next little while? I know that Parliament's starting up again soon.
Yeah, so we have, at the very last week of February, we're back to estimates. So before the Senate inquiry, we also had I asked some questions of both the TGA and the Health Department in previous estimates. I think we were in October, November. I'd have to double check last year when it was, that fabulous year of 2020. But I asked a number of questions to both the TGA and the Health Department around vaping and the position and different things that were occurring. And a number of them were taken on notice. So for those that don't know, questions on notice, we give them a time frame to get back to us. There are a number of those questions that have not been answered. So at the end of February, if they're not answered, I will be re-asking them and asking why they weren't answered last time. And so it'll be interesting to see, but we'll also be keeping a running watch on how many doctors are registered, how many doctors have gone through the training. I had a question today from someone. I actually sent them a message. I think I used the wrong name, but it's sort of autocorrect when I was typing. But the AMA has, the president of the AMA has apparently said something about time limiting of scripts. I haven't actually seen anything where he has said that, but he is opposed to vaping, and he has said outright on a number of occasions. The AMA, though, is effectively a union. They're not the Royal College of GPs, who have expressed more interest and support for this model. The AMA, they've never seen a rebate they don't like. So if there's a Medicare rebate attached to this, I'm sure at some stage they'll come around. But, GPs are not really interested in this stage. Most of the ones that I've spoken to sort of outside on other issues aren't rushing at the chance to prescribe nicotine, and they don't understand it. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand the strength. They don't understand any of that. It's all, it's a specialization, that smoking cessation.
Mm-hmm.
Job security.
Yeah, one of the viewers has said that her GP has said that under no circumstances is he going to write a prescription for nicotine.
Yeah, my GP's not a fan. He's not a fan. I spoke to him about it, and he's like, "No, I don't know about that." He's a great GP. I like him for everything else. But he said to me, "I'm not a fan."
Yeah,
but they, I think, have been given a lot of misinformation.
We know
21,000 deaths in Australia caused by smoking. We know that. Zero by vaping. The 3 deaths that they refer to in the US had the THC in it. They were black market THC vapes.
No.
I mean, it was, and up until the day of our first tobacco harm reduction, that information was on the Health Department's website. They changed it the day, which might be a bit of a tip, because that was one of the questions I asked them. When did it change? Could I get that information as a question on notice, which they declined to provide an answer to. Not that they have the right to just decline an answer, but they just didn't provide it. But we know it was the day before that they took that false information down. It had been up for years because we'd been watching brief on it. And
even
that
our
is
stuff.
That is misleading information from the Health Department.
Yeah.
So
even our groups still have it on their websites.
It's an ideological driven argument. There have been 0 deaths by vaping. If I hear once more we don't have enough information, as you yourself have said, Patrick, you've been going for 11 years or so. Vaping. We would know today, if smoking became a product today, we would know within a very short period of time the harm that tar does, the harm that combustible tobacco does, the harm that the smoke on the lungs does, we would know that very quickly. And these health officials who are making these claims, well, I think it's insulting to the scientists because the scientists have done a lot of the work. They know popcorn lung's not a thing. They know that the THC was off black market and not causing the deaths. They know that it's reducing smoking rates. And you can't have the argument both ways. You can't have an increase in the numbers of vapors, decrease in the numbers of smoking, but argue it's an on-ramp. I mean, it's just insane. We have the biggest drop in youth smoking that we've ever seen. They're not, and that drop is continuing. We're not seeing a spike in the 24-year-olds taking up the fags.
No.
And they're not going to go from a habit, if they do vape, that costs $5 a week maybe to a $58 a packet. Why would you? And it stinks.
Would you?
No. I mean, why would you? It's insane.
Nobody would.
It's insane. It is the most stupid argument I've ever heard. Do I acknowledge kids are vaping? Of course they are. But you know what? When I was at school, we were smoking.
Yes, we were.
Kevin started smoking when he was like 3 years old. So,
I literally have about 4 minutes left. But,
I know.
I was a bit naughty in high school,
Yeah.
Sneaking off with my girlfriends to have
Kids will always experiment. And when you tell somebody, even in America, I don't know about Australia, but in America, we're very rebellious people. If you tell us you can't do that. Well, I think you guys are just as bad as us, I believe.
I think that's our slogan nationally. Tell us not to and we will.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we are. And I believe that children, regardless of where they are, when something is taboo or something, you can't do it. That's the first thing they're going to do.
But in the consumer model that Senator Canavan and I were proposing, we were looking for the same sorts of restrictions that apply to alcohol, that apply to cigarettes. And if you've got specific vape stores who have regulatory requirements to only sell the product to over 18, it is exactly the same model as an alcohol store. So what is the problem? They have the same issues. So if you get busted selling it to underage, you have the same penalties as if you own a liquor store. It's just, I mean, honestly, I found the anti-arguments just so ludicrous that it wasn't backed up by their numbers. And every time something didn't match when you could point out the numbers to them, is just, they just move on to the next study that they...
And they're admitting that they can't do their job.
Somewhere else.
Oh, sorry.
Eliana says it perfectly in the chat room.
Yeah.
Your fear of nicotine addiction.
Eggplants.
Yeah.
You know what? We're going to ban eggplants. We're going to ban tomatoes because there's nicotine in both of those. It's a naturally occurring substance. I mean, honestly. And why is nicotine in a patch A-okay, but nicotine in a vape, that's no good. You cannot have different, all nicotine is not considered equally.
Yeah, you said that in the hearing. I was going to clip that, but it was getting really long. And but
I mean, the quote that I know they loved, a couple of people loved, and it got a bit of airtime down here, was with the bottle when I did a press conference. I said, the reality is, we got a bottle here, a litre bottle of nicotine, made in China, no childproof cap. For all we know, it was brewed in a bathtub in Wuhan. And, but that's the reality. We don't know anything about it. We have no quality oversight. We have no assurances of the product quality and the control. So, we need to make sure that we're doing a lot better, that if nicotine is so dangerous and it's such a terrible product, that why is it okay that we don't even know where people are getting it from? It is so insane. Their argument, I have never heard a more ridiculous series of arguments, and a product that people so passionately oppose for, I don't know, don't use it. If you don't like them, don't use them.
Welcome to our world.
We are so glad you are here. I know that you need to go. I don't want to rush you away.
I'm sorry about that, but I promise I'll come back. And if anyone's got any specific questions or anything, if you just shoot them through to me, I'll make sure I've got all the information.
This has been a 45-minute packed informational view.
It's just just lovely to hear somebody say the same things that we've been saying for years that might actually have a stage to say it on.
Impact. Yes.
Well, I have moved recently from tobacco flavored to tropical flavored, so I feel like I'm branching out a little bit.
Well, we have friends in Australia that are flavor people, and I can promise you, if you get us an address, we can get stuff to you with lots of different flavors.
Well, I have a prescription. So this is my vape, and I use these little pods.
Yep.
You know, because I'm incredibly not techie, and the thought of having to refill pods was just a little bit too much for me. So I've probably gone for the most expensive option, but I've gone for the easy version.
We can get you something like this that has
like this.
This is not much bigger
for me.
This has a refillable. All you have to do is lift the little thing and squirt a little liquid in it, and that's it.
I know, but there's coils and stuff you got to change and stuff. Let me tell you that again.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I didn't have my laptop for 8 weeks. I forgot my password. You know, there's certain things that you just know where you should just, know your limitations.
Thank you so much for spending
guys,
time
happy
with
to come back. I apologize that I have to go.
Everybody say goodbye to the senator. Bye, Holly.
See you guys.
We've got more questions, so please contact me when you're ready.
Will do. Now, do you let me go, or do I have to go?
You can
I'm so techie.
You can just hit the button. There should be a button that says leave, or I'll kick you. I don't want to kick you.
I got it.
Though.
All right. See you guys. I'll talk to you
See
later. Thanks for that.
Bye.
You. Wow.
Wow.
She's riled. I like riled.
48 minutes of gold right there, buddy.
I like her way better than you.
Well, I like her way better than I like myself. Wow, Kevin, that was. I am so excited to have her on again.
Man.
Wow, guys. So I did throw the link to Holly's website in the chat room, and it's just hollyhughes.com.au. That's HOLLIEHUGHES.AU. And she has a whole section on her website that says tobacco harm reduction. So I'm just gonna throw it up on screen here because I want everybody, obviously not tonight, but this is her tobacco harm reduction. This is her page. You click on this tab, it brings you to this section, and down here, obviously, there's a button to donate. If you guys want to donate to the senator's campaign, and then all of the videos from all of the hearings are here with the names of the people that are being talked to in the interview. And this one down here, Emily Banks, is the one. If you really want to see the senator get hot, really, really riled up, watch this one. This one is good. There's 8 videos up here, and some of them are, obviously they're each about an hour long or so, I think. Some of them are 2 hours. But yeah, I invite you to watch those. This is good stuff. Good stuff.
And her Twitter, I just threw in the chat as well.
Yeah. Everybody follow her on Twitter. Follow her on Twitter. Like her on Facebook. We want to amplify all of her stuff.
Vaping is a lot less harmful than smoking a cigarette.
We're exporting a whole lot of really bad and dangerous rhetoric, bad research, and unfortunately it's being picked up and amplified in other countries.
Never forget the elephant in the room. It's actually such a big elephant that I don't think people can even breathe in that room because it's such a huge elephant. It's the number one preventable cause of death in Australia. So when you are taking a precautionary approach, when you're like, no, we just don't know enough, I just tell them, shut up, because that I don't know, is killing people right now.
There's a tremendous push to bring about prohibition, to actually prohibit vaping. Whereas the evidence strongly suggests that actually, up to now, the most successful way of people stopping smoking cigarettes is vaping.
When vaping increases, smoking decreases.
That's right.
When vaping is restricted, smoking increases.
We're worried that, in fact, a lot of members of the public still think that using an e-cigarette is as harmful as smoking a cigarette. I mean, I have said that it would be tragic if smokers didn't quit and carried on smoking because they hadn't tried an e-cigarette, because they were worried about the safety of an e-cigarette.
Vaping is a form of tobacco harm reduction. No one is claiming it is the silver bullet that's going to stop everyone from smoking, and I think that's really important to acknowledge. And the people that actually support vaping support it as a harm reduction model.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.